One thing we don't talk about enough in our videos, because I think we just take these things for granted, is our windows and our doors, because they go in so nicely. These things are made for the DIYer. They're very simple to install. Everything is laser cut with laser referenced holes, and so if the holes line up, that's probably where it needs to go. A couple things as part of this kit that you need to keep in mind. There's a corrugation cap. So the bottom cutout of your corrugations, there's a cap here. It's basically a C channel. That keeps the bottom corrugations nice and in alignment, and then you can actually fasten that to the corrugations through the allotted rivet holes from the inside. So you do that at the end of the installation. The other part is you need to actually define what's the top and what's the bottom of this window framing kit, because the side frames and the header and the footer, they're a mirrored part, and so the window can install either direction, but you want to look at your vinyl window and there will be drain holes down at the bottom, and that's the bottom of your window. Once it's installed and nice and square inside of this framing kit, then you've defined the top, and now you rivet on your rain drip. This drip edge is all of the brains of the kit. It basically allows you to go from a corrugated structure like this, and it sheds that water. So it allows that water to come down and then drip off and away from the window. It doesn't roll back around the header and then battle all that silicone job that you did trying to keep this all sealed up. We always recommend spray foam, and that's what we'll be using on this job, because that spray foam is going to come right back up to this vinyl window and give yourself that perfect air and vapor seal. I'm going to enlist some help here. We're going to lift this up. Big thing what you want to do is this upward portion of the rain drip that tucks in underneath these corrugations, and that's what helps that water shed. So when the water comes down, it can't climb back over that and get inside your envelope. It has to go down your drip edge of the rain drip here. So we lift it up, we get our fingers out of the way, and we make sure we tuck that in first, and then we just kick in the bottom and set it on top of this corrugation cap. Like butter. And so what we're going to want to do, we've already framed the interior, and we're using our strut framing method, which is 279 millimeter on center pitches. And so we have that defined on the interior of this container. So we're going to want to jump inside of here and just shimmy the window over one way or the other, make sure that it's nice and square within our framing, and then we'll pin it in place. So here on the inside, this is what it looks like. We have our strut framing members, and then we just want to make sure that this gap on both sides is nice and even. We're also going to be laddering across with some strut channel using our T-brackets, and then we can actually just fill this all in just traditionally like you would any other window in your home. There's a gap there, you can fill that with foam, or we can just caulk right up to that. But yeah, we like a very industrial finish, as you can see with our framing here. It is a lot of galvanized, rugged steel members, and we like to just keep everything as durable as possible. Stay away from too much residential interior finishing methods, because those don't seem to last in the construction and in the industrial fields where these container-based structures are headed. Time now to install our 32-inch composite man door. If you're looking to put a man door in the side of your shipping container, we've often sold our 36-inch door, but that doesn't work out very well with the outside corrugations, because these are 11 inches on center, and that gets us to 33 inches. So we have to jump all the way to the 44-inch corrugation, and then we've got 4-inch wide flanges on both sides of the door. That makes it way bigger than it has to be, but the biggest problem on 20-foot containers is it always offsets us either one corrugation to the left or one to the right. And it bugs our OCD that we're not dead center inside of these containers, and that's what this 32-inch door does. So if you don't need that extra 4 inches getting in and out of this container because you have these perfectly good operational shipping container doors, put a 32-inch door on there. It is way sleeker of a frame. Because it's not so wide here, it actually doesn't torque on the frame as much when you're opening and closing it. So even though it's a smaller frame, it's actually way stronger. And then these composite door slabs are so much better insulated than a steel door slab. You don't have that steel exposed to the outside elements, which the cold just transfers right through that sheet of the steel right onto the inside of your container. You can look down at the bottom of the door and you see frost collecting all on the door, and we don't notice that on our composite door slabs because it's all filled with foam, and it's just one solid envelope. There's not air drafts and things going through the slab or around the slab. It really seems to seal up very well. So composite slabs, 32-inch, makes it nice and centered. And we'll show you how this thing installs here now. So these doors, they're also corrugation dependent. We leave ourselves an outside corrugation, and that's where the flange of the door is going to, we're gonna drill right through the reference holes and rivet this thing on. We like to put some sort of a sealant on there so we squeeze that through, then we don't have to run a big ugly bead afterwards. So I really like just sandwiching the caulking between the flange, and then you get a nice clean crisp install afterwards. They come with rain drips. You'll have to select which side's the top and which side's the bottom, and that's based off how you want this door to swing. So I usually like to swing out and then I'd walk towards the container doors that are the useful part of this office. And then these rain drips here, this now that we've selected our swing will rivet on through the supplied holes up in the top of this header. And then that's going to have the corrugation sit inside of here. One thing you'll want to consider is how high up off the floor you cut your opening. If you're going to keep the shipping container floor, then you cut it right down to the top of the channel, or in this instance, it's this rec tube here on these mod boxes. But if you're going to be installing a rigid foam in here and a subfloor and maybe new flooring, you might want to cut this 2 3/4 of an inch up. And so you leave some corrugations in there, and then you'll actually come up top as well. We like to leave the weld on here because it's just a huge job. It's loud, it's annoying, you know, zinc flying all around your shop. So we've designed right into the door the fact that you leave the weld here and you only have to cut through the 1.6 millimeter thick corrugation. But another thing we really like to do is just right over top of this weld, we apply a liberal bead of sealant on there. And then that, if you use the right type of sealant, is a bit of an adhesive as well. So it stops the potential for any insects to get in under your threshold. It seals that from any air drafts, and it also glues it on there so it's nice and rigid when you're stepping on it, because you'll be in and out of this, I imagine, quite often. One clean shot at this. Oh yeah, everything worked out perfectly here. So we're gonna just pin the bottom right corner, the hinge side, and then get that pinned in place. We've looked at the framing members on the inside of the container, and it's sitting perfectly at the base of this thing, but it is drafted that way. So we're gonna pull it back and make sure that the door's nice and square and operational. But step one is just getting this one rivet in. Yeah. Once you get your 4 corners pinned and the door seems to swing open and close, you can tell that, like, the side frame, if your container's got any sort of bow in it, it still could kind of push on the frame a bit. So we just make sure that when we're pinning these last rivets in, we got ourselves a nice gap here so that it's not going to become a problem in the future, because we want this door to work well. We want the container to be nice and level while we're spray foaming, because that locks everything in. And so if your container is not sitting on a nice level pad and your doors and windows aren't operating before you get that foam contractor here, you're gonna lock in a problem. So really make sure that your door works prior to spray foam.